warm welcome to State of Business on our television. I'm Hishain Ali and let's have a look at the headlines first. Supreme Court dismisses the fundamental rights petitions against general elections date and Election Commission will announce a new date tomorrow. Former State Minister of Finance stresses that central banks should be independent to ensure the stability of the economy. News in detail. National Election Commission is allowed to announce a new date for the general election 2020 as the Supreme Court today dismissed all the petitions that challenged the dissolution of Parliament and holding of the general elections of the 20th of this month. The dismissal decision by the Supreme Court was announced this evening after considering facts presented by both parties throughout 10 days. The 7 fundamental rights petition filed against the dissolution of Parliament and holding of the general elections on June 20th were dismissed by the Supreme Court and refused to grant leave to proceed. Attorney-at-Law Charitha Gunaratne, the Centre for Policy Alternatives, journalist Victor Ivan and the Samagi Jana Balawegaya have filed fundamental rights petition over the date of the election. Accordingly, the 5-member judge bench of the Supreme Court unanimously decided to dismiss all 7 petitions. Over the last 2 weeks, Supreme Court heard detailed submissions of some 15 intervenient petitioners, respondents and 8 petitioners, which concluded yesterday. The Attorney General's Department last Friday informed the Apex Court that the March 2nd dated presidential proclamation of dissolving Parliament continues to be valid and urged the 8 fundamental rights petitions which challenged its legality to be dismissed. The Supreme Court 5-judge bench comprised of Chief Justice Jayantha Jayasuriya, Justices Buenaka Aluvihare, Justice Sisira D. Abreu, Justice Priyantha Jayawardena and Justice Vijit Malalgoda. Accordingly, the decisions paves the way for the Election Commission to decide a new date for the general election. Election Commission Chairman Mahinda Deshapriya, making a statement yesterday, said that the health factors have slowed down the arrangements for the elections. However, he assured that the Commission will be able to hold the general election within a period of 60 to 70 days from the Supreme Court decision. Accordingly, government printer assured that they have already commenced the printing of the necessary documents for the elections. The official data shows that the COVID-19 pandemic and the imposition of a partial lockdown in Sri Lanka in the second half of March 2020 have resulted in a notable decline in merchandise exports as well as merchandise imports. The External Sector Performance Report for the month of March this year shows that the deficit in the trade account narrowed in March 2020 to $549 million from $592 million in March 2019 as the decline in imports in value terms exceeded the decline in exports. However, on a cumulative basis, the trade deficit widened to $1,853 million during the first 3 months of 2020 from $1,661 million in the corresponding period of 2019. Moreover, the report stresses that the earnings from merchandise exports declined significantly on a year-on-year basis by 42.3% to $656 million in March 2020, reversing the marginal growth recorded in February 2020. Disruptions to domestic production processes, disruptions to export-related services due to the imposition of curfew, and disruptions to both domestic and global supply and demand chains due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic were the main reasons for this sharp decline in the earnings from exports. Expenditure on merchandise imports declined notably on a year-on-year basis in March 2020 by 30.3% to $1,205 million, reversing the increasing trend observed since December 2019. In addition, urgent measures taken by the government and the central bank in March 2020 to ease the pressure on the exchange rate and to prevent financial market panic due to the COVID-19 pandemic, including the suspension on facilitating the importation of motor vehicles and non-essential consumer goods, also contributed to this decline in import expenditure. However, expenditure on the importation of essential consumer goods such as wheat, vegetables, mainly big onions and potatoes, sugar, spices and seafood increased in March 2020. In the meantime, central bank's data on the external sector performance shows that the workers' remittances declined notably in March 2020 with the return of migrant workers from affected countries as well as the reported job terminations of some workers abroad. The report stresses that Sri Lanka's tourism industry was severely affected in March 2020 by the COVID-19 pandemic. With the termination of all passenger flights and ships to Sri Lanka, there was a cessation of tourist arrivals from the third week of March 2020, resulting in a substantial decline in tourist arrivals by 70.8% to 71,370 from 244,328 in March 2019. With these developments, earnings from tourism were provisionally estimated to have declined to $135 million in March 2020 in comparison to $461 million in March 2019, with cumulative earnings amounting to $956 million during the first 3 months of 2020, a drop of 31.5% from the corresponding period of 2019. Meanwhile, workers' remittances declined by 13.9% in March 2020, year-on-year, amounting to $492 million. There was a notable number of returnees from countries such as South Korea and Italy prior to the closure of the airports in March 2020. This was further exacerbated by lower crude oil prices impacting Middle Eastern economies where a majority of Sri Lankan migrant workers are employed. On a cumulative basis, workers' remittances recorded a decline of 1% to $1,600 million during the first 3 months of 2020 in comparison to the corresponding period of 2019. Stay tuned for more news right after this commercial break. Welcome back after the break. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa emphasizes that crimes operated by underworld kingpins and drug mafia from prisons must be put to an end without delay. President Rajapaksa made these comments during a discussion with the prison officials to review the current status of the prisons held at Presidential Secretariat yesterday. Accordingly, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa added that specific information relating to criminal activities and drug peddling operated from prisons have been received. President stated that if prisons or police reach a state of collapse, it will adversely affect maintaining law and order in the country, and he added that he always welcomes the right conduct on the part of officials despite their political loyalties. President also said that use of mobile phones within prison premises should be completely eradicated. Moreover, President Rajapaksa emphasized that the existing shortcomings of the Department of Prisons will be removed and the system will be entirely overhauled.
ජනතාව අතර තියෙන මතය බොහොම නරකයි. මගෙන් සමහර අය අහනවා මොනවටද මේ ප්‍රෙසන්ස් තියාගෙන ඉන්නේ වහලා දාන්න කියලා. ඒ තරමට නරකයි. ඉතින් මේක හැදෙන්න ඕන. මේක සමාජයේ වැදගත් එක්තරා ආයතනයක්. මොකද වැරදි කරයින් පස්සේ යන්නේ මෙතෙන්ට. එතකොට එතෙන්දි මේක හරියට වෙන්නේ නැත්තම් එතන විශාල ප්‍රශ්නයක් තියෙනවා. සමහර වෙලාවට මේකට අත ගහන්න නැතුව ඇති. නමුත් මට ජනතාව දීලා තියෙන බලය තමයි ඒක. මම වෙන දේවල් බලන්නේ නැහැ. මට ඕන ඒක කරන්න. ඉතින් මම ඒක අනිවාර්යෙන් කරනවා. කවුරු තරහා වුණත් කවුරු යාළු වුණත් මට ප්‍රශ්නයක් නැහැ.
Former State Minister of Finance Eran Wickramaratne today accused the government over the resignation of 2 members of the Central Bank Monetary Board before completing their fixed terms. He also called upon the government to respect the independence of the central bank as it has been entrusted to ensure stable currency, a tolerable inflation rate and a stability in the economy. 2 members of the Monetary Board, Nihal Fonseca and Dr. Dushni Virakone, appointed during the previous regime, have tendered their resignation with effect from the 31st of May. Ex-banker Fonseca was appointed to the Monetary Board in July 2016, while Dr. Virakone, who is the Executive Director of Institute of Policy Studies, was appointed in July 2019. Former State Minister made these observations today, implying that the resignations took place on the request of the government, enabling them to reconstitute the Monetary Board.
The role of the central bank is an independent role to the government. All over the world, this is accepted. And we need to protect the role of the central bank. The central bank's responsibilities, amongst its many responsibilities, price control, inflation, money supply are their responsibilities, as opposed to fiscal policy. And therefore, the central bank has to be independent. The appointments are made by the president by first proposing names. The names are cleared for being fit and proper by the Constitutional Council, and then only the appointments are made. And these appointments are for a fixed term. But unfortunately, when you force out members of the Monetary Board, the independence of the central bank is being threatened by it. It is really sad to note that this is happening before our very eyes, that these highly competent individuals have been forced out of the central bank. The reason for fixed terms is to ensure independence. And therefore, when fixed terms, individuals appointed are forced out by using pressure, it questions the independence of the central bank. I am really disappointed that the present central bank, headed by an academic, couldn't see the importance of safeguarding its members.
Total recoveries from COVID-19 in Sri Lanka increases to 823 as of 2 p.m. today. In the meantime, Health Ministry states that more than 66,000 PCR tests have been conducted in the country so far. Accordingly, 10 new COVID-19 cases were identified from the country yesterday, surpassing the total count of COVID-19 cases in Sri Lanka to more than 1,640. Thus, 4 returnees from Bangladesh, 1 returnee from Indonesia, 1 returnee from Belarus, 2 Navy personnel and 2 close associates of Army personnel have contracted the virus yesterday. In the meantime, Sri Lanka reported the 11th death from the COVID-19 infection yesterday. The deceased was a 45-year-old male who had arrived to Sri Lanka from Kuwait. Moreover, as of 2 p.m. today, there are 809 active patients, while 84 individuals are under investigations in hospitals. In the meantime, 8 inmates who were undergoing quarantine period in Naval Quarantine Center at Busa Naval Base and at Kalpitia area left the centers after completion of their quarantine process yesterday and today. Out of these 8 individuals, 6 persons left Naval Quarantine Center at Busa Naval Base today and 2 persons left Naval Quarantine Center at Kalpitia yesterday. The leaving inmates were also given a Veda quarantine certificate, which is issued to confirm the successful quarantine period by the Navy. As of now, 224 persons have left Busa Naval Quarantine Center and another 93 persons are undergoing quarantine process there. Meanwhile, 24 persons have left Naval Quarantine Center at Kalpitia and 21 persons are undergoing quarantine process there. Stay tuned to the stock updates. Trading at Colombo Stock Exchange ended on a mixed note today. The all-share price index dropped 4.8 points to close at 4,790.6 and the S&P SL20 gained 10.58 points to close at 1,972.78. The turnover has 1 billion rupees and over 192 million shares were traded. Up next are Forex rates. all news for tonight. See you tomorrow with State of Business at the usual time. Take care and good night.